Anyone else really excited for this show? Falcon and Winter Soldier? Look at that guy. He's a good looking man. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be ranking all of the franchises amongst the MCU. Now, these are movies that have a sequel in the MCU. That's basically what it is. So there's some franchises that only have one sequel, and there's trilogies, and there's even a quadrilogy, but I'll get into that later. So at the moment, there's only 7 franchises. Doctor Strange is going to get a sequel, and then it will become a franchise. And then I think that's it at the moment when it comes to sequels. But without further ado, I'm going to rank these. Now, this is all my personal preference, by the way. I know a lot of people will probably disagree on certain placements of certain franchises, but that's what makes talking about the MCU so much fun. So coming in at number 7 for me is going to be Thor. Now, this is a trilogy at the moment. You've got Thor, Thor the Dark World, and Thor Ragnarok. Now, the first Thor movie I think is fine. Like, it's middle of the road at best for MCU, and it has entertainment value. I think Loki's introduction and his role as the villain is really the strong point of the movie. Thor the Dark World is abysmal. Like, it's the worst MCU movie for sure. It's just a snooze fest. And then Thor Ragnarok revived Thor the character when you brought in Taika Waititi and just added so many comedic elements and improv. It all just worked. You honestly revived the careers of Hulk and Thor as characters, and you introduced Valkyrie. Like, that movie is so much fun, and that's what was missing from the Thor movies. It's because it took so long to get going and actually get me to care about this franchise and this character. Now, with Thor Love and Thunder coming out, it could easily surpass some of these on the list. Coming in at number 6 for me is going to be the AntMan franchise. Now, I thoroughly enjoy the first AntMan, and I think Paul Rudd's AntMan is one of my current favorite characters in the MCU that's alive. He just has this charisma about him, and you love Paul Rudd. He ages like fine wine, by the way. What a guy. But the first Ant-Man movie is like a heist, fun movie. Luis is a hilarious character. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp, I still like. Like, don't get me wrong. Just compared to a lot of the other MCU movies, it's not as high on my list. But, like, when I tell you how relaxing it was to watch that in theaters after Infinity War, it was truly relaxing. I saw that one twice in theaters. Ant-Man and the Wasp 2 times in theaters, baby. And the post-credit scene for that is one of the better post-credit scenes in the MCU when Scott gets left in the quantum realm and everyone's dusted outside. As a franchise, I think Ant-Man Quantumania, I believe, is the new one coming out, could solidify this as a really great trilogy. Coming in at number 5 is going to be... Are you ready for the hot take? Iron Man? I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but the Iron Man franchise. Now, I'm going to clear the air real quick. Iron Man's my favorite MCU character. He always will be. Rest in peace to a legend. Deeply missed, my friend. The first Iron Man movie I've probably seen more than any of the other MCU movies. I watched it on a loop in 4th grade. I would come home for a week. I did this every day. Come home, get a snack, watch Iron Man, repeat the next day. That was my routine. So I have the DVD, I have the Blu-ray now, but I love me some Iron Man, and I think that movie is one of the best, if not the most perfect origin story ever when it comes to comic book movies, because what it does so great is it sucks you in from the start, but it doesn't bore you ever. It's about 40, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour of just character development, but they do it in such an interesting manner as he's trapped in the cave and he's instructed to build a Jericho missile for the terrorist group. But he just says, now I'm going to build this suit and get out of here, the Mark I. And his relationship with Yinsid really kind of forms a foundation for Tony Stark's character to grow on. And that's like the first pivot in his character arc. I love this movie to death. I could sit here and gush about it. Iron Man 2, again, I liked that one when I saw it in theater. So it's got a little bit of a soft spot for me, but it's not good at all. Like, the movie is messy all over the place, tries to introduce too much with the villain Whiplash, and then Sam Rockwell's character, Justin Hammer, and then Nick Fury in the background with Coulson and Black Widow. Again, there's moments that work for me, but overall, I just can't really give it a positive score even. It's not that great. I never rewatch Iron Man 2. And then Iron Man 3 is a movie that's disappointed me ever since I saw it in theaters, unfortunately. I get that people are starting to come around to it, and it's totally cool if you love Iron Man 3. More power to you. But for me, it just never really clicked. It's not one that I revisit much, if at all. The reason that this is above Ant-Man, the franchise, is because the first Iron Man is that strong that it holds that much weight for the franchise. But looking at Iron Man as a trilogy, you started so high, you took a massive jump down, and then you came up a little bit. We never got a 4th Iron Man, but Iron Man's character moved on to become the best in the MCU, especially with his appearances in Civil War and the Avengers movies. Coming in at number 4 for me, this might shock some people if you know my personal taste, is going to be the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. Now, the reason I have this one above Iron Man, which I gushed about, right, the first Iron Man movie, is because the first Guardians and the second Guardians are perfect companion pieces to each other. The first one, a lot of people's top 3, if not favorite MCU movie. I think that it's a blast. It's in my top 10 for sure. And I'll never forget when I saw that one in theaters, how like blown away I was by how different and unique it was for the MCU. And the soundtrack, my gosh, it is one of the best movie soundtracks of all time. I actually have the soundtrack for Guardians 1 and 2 saved on a playlist in my phone. But the first Guardians, you get this story of Peter Quill, Star-Lord, and who's his father? We don't know. That's explored in the second one. But he forms this family. It's really about family. And the moment where Groot says, "We are Groot," it gets you in the feels every single time, and I think this is a pure fun movie from start to finish. Now, Guardians 2 is very jumpy in the beginning. It's all over the place trying to establish a lot of different things. That's an issue I have with it, is how like sporadic the movie is. It never really settles down. However, I still enjoy it at parts. It's one of my least favorite MCU movies, but it's still, because of like Yondu's impact with Peter, and when Yondu dies, it's a very heartbreaking moment, one of the saddest in the MCU. You get a lot of development for the actual members of the Guardians, as weak as the story may be, with all the different villains and everything going on. There's really a story about a son realizing his father's a terrible person, and realizing that his true father is Yondu, and that's a very powerful message. I think James Gunn helms these two movies so well that they act as perfect companion pieces, and when Guardians 3 comes out, this could easily be the best trilogy or franchise so far in the MCU. Coming in at number 3, now this is going to be the shocker for some, is going to be the Spider-Man movies. I know Far From Home is so hated, and a lot of people would strongly dislike the movie. I think that it's a quite entertaining movie. I don't love it by any means, but the first movie, Homecoming, I love Homecoming. I think that it's the perfect like reunion, homecoming for the character of Spider-Man. As he's in high school, Tom Holland embodies Peter Parker to perfection, in my opinion. If Thanos didn't exist, Vulture's the best MCU villain. He's just a family man trying to make ends meet. Michael Keaton plays him so well. When he turns around in the car and he says, "I'm gonna give Pete the old bad talk," and he looks at him, I get chills every time. And then you get Far From Home, and you have Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, just having a total blast in the role. Now, is it stupid that Tony Stark's really his nemesis? Yes. Would I have liked to see someone who's actually Peter Parker's nemesis? 100%. Now, there's a lot of nitpicking to go with Far From Home. Like, the character of Brad is so wasted and just cringe, like extremely cringe. And a lot of the things in this movie are cringe. The elementals don't really work for me. But something about Mysterio's character just clicks with me. I like his villain so much, and the Far From Home post-credit scene is wild. It's the best post-credit scene to date in the MCU. So there's a lot of highlights with this movie. As much as people like to sit here and kind of crap on it, I think that it's still an entertaining movie. I don't rewatch as much as Homecoming. I don't rewatch it as much as the other Spider-Man movies. But because of the intrigue that has been set up going into Spider-Man 3, that's why I have this one above a lot of the other franchises, because so far the first movie and the second movie have just worked for me personally. I know a lot of people disagree. I really enjoy Homecoming and Far From Home. Looking forward to Spider-Man 3. So for me, I think this is one of the better franchises in the MCU. Now, my top 2 are going to be most people's top 2. The order might switch depending on who you ask, but number 2 for me is going to be the Captain America franchise. You've got the first Avenger, one of the better origin stories, and an awesome look at like a World War II Captain America. It's just great. You have a heartbreaking love story with him and Peggy, and you see Bucky's downfall. A lot of stuff is set up for later in the MCU. It's a very fun movie that really was enhanced after Endgame when you see the finality of Peggy and Cap's character arc. And then you got The Winter Soldier, which a lot of people say is the best MCU movie. I think it's one of the best for sure when it comes to action and this creating this intense, fast pace with the score and these hand-to-hand combat scenes that just work perfectly. So I really enjoy Winter Soldier as well. And I think that the Winter Soldier character is going to be explored more in Falcon Winter Soldier, which I'm hyped for. And then you've got Civil War, which is essentially Avengers 2.5, right? That's what everyone calls it. You have Team Iron Man versus Team Cap. You have Zemo as the villain. There's so many things that work here. The introduction of Black Panther, the introduction of Spider-Man in the MCU. And I think that Zemo wins. He ultimately does win. He gets the two sides, Iron Man and Cap, to go at it. And he wanted to tear the Avengers apart. And he did, so he won, and I think he's one of the better MCU villains for that reason alone. Civil War is actually one of my favorite MCU movies. I saw it twice the day that it came out in theaters. Twice. Loved it that much. Every single movie is different. It adds something new to the table. It's a perfect trilogy almost, I would say. But taking the top spot is going to be the Avengers franchise, of course. The first Avengers movie holds a near and dear to my heart. Saw it in theaters opening day. Saw it 3 times in theaters, I believe. It's the first team up of these characters on the big screen. What's not to love? There were people in my theater clapping at the time, and I was just so happy to be there as a 12-year-old. I love that first Avengers movie to this day. It's a lot of fun. Age of Ultron gets unnecessary hate, in my opinion. I think there's moments that don't really work. Like, it's dragged out a little too much with certain flashback scenes. And, you know, the Brutasha thing, whatever, it's stupid. I get it. I don't like it either. In the final act with Ultron, I think is still awesome. I like the Battle of Sokovia quite a bit. There's a lot of heartbreaking moments, like Quicksilver's death. And this movie, I feel like, is critical for the MCU because there's going to be a lot of mentions back to it, such as the Sokovia Accords in Civil War, and they're even talking about it in WandaVision. So I think Age of Ultron delivers on the action and the epicness you want from an Avengers movie, and still has those cool character moments, so I've always liked it. You get Infinity War, perhaps the best MCU movie. Seriously, I've been thinking about it. That just shattered everyone's expectations. Like, everyone's expectations were this high. Above that, that's how much the movie delivered. Thanos wins, and that's just... Thanos wins. Half of the heroes are dusted away and killed, and you don't know what's going to happen. You have to wait a year. This movie delivered on all aspects. It's one of the best theatrical experiences I've ever had. The action sequences are spectacular, and this movie never misses a beat, entertaining from start to finish. And then you have Avengers Endgame, the culmination of the Infinity Saga that just is a perfect conclusion. Iron Man and Captain America having perfect closure with their character arcs as Iron Man goes from selfish to selfless, and Cap goes from selfless to selfish as he finally has the relationship with Peggy that he's wanted his whole life. I think that the switching of their character arcs could not have been done better. The final hour of Endgame is perfect to me. The battle, everything just works. The portal scene, I get chills and almost cry every time. You have this ultimate sacrifice from Iron Man, and the first act is essentially the recouping and just trying to figure out the plan, and it like really shows the destruction by Thanos. And then the middle act is this fan service time travel where they're really just getting all the stones, which is a blast for MCU fans. And then the last act is ultimate payoff. This movie is perfection, and Endgame and Infinity War paired together is one long epic movie that I will always cherish, and watching them back to back is something else. If you haven't done that, I highly recommend it. Every single franchise movie builds up to the Avengers movies, so it's almost like a cheat that it's at number one, but hey, they deserve to be at the top. Yes, it's the team-up movies, but still, I just think they're the best and the most rewatchable, and everything works about the Avengers movies. So that's going to do it for my ranking of all 7 MCU franchises. Definitely hit the like button and comment down below your ranking of the franchises as well. Do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm utterly insane for putting SpiderMan at number 3? Let me know down below. And what MCU movie or TV show are you most anticipated for the rest of the year? We got a ton of MCU content that I cannot wait to dive into, so stay tuned for all that. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean the world. I've got a ton of content planned, like I said. WandaVision watch parties, WandaVision reviews, Falcon Winter Soldier's coming up, Black Widow hopefully, so stay tuned for all that and more. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.